Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jonaz podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of having three of my favorite and closest friends that I've got the pleasure to meet over the last year through a program called Fit for Service. This was an amazing year. We were able to follow Aubrey Marcus and his team through a wonderful journey where we were able to heal ourselves, work on ourselves, improve our mental aspects, our physical aspects, and just learn so much about who we are as individuals. This journey has been amazing, and the way that we ended up here today was also a beautiful part of the journey, and we'll get into those details, I think, a little bit further into the podcast. But today I just wanted to introduce everyone. I'm going to let them give a little bit of an intro on who they are, what they are about, and we have Scarlet Rose, we have Robert Goodland, and we have Katie Cheadle, correct pronunciation. And I'm going to go ahead and start with Scarlet. If you want to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go around, and then we can kind of get started on how we ended up in Fit for Service and how we got here today. So I'll let you start.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. So it's so nice to be here. I can't wait to get more into the conversation of how this has come to be. So for the past 12, almost 13 years, I have been diving deep into the arts of home birthing, homeschooling, homesteading, and homemaking.
Wow.
And
a lot of H's.
It's all about home. It's all about home, right?
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And currently I'm living with my partner on a beautiful 10-acre property in the Texas Hill Country. We're raising three amazing human beings to also just know the true nature of who they are, be resilient, be kind, be caring, be as wild as free as possible, and also be in tune with the seasons and the stars.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, Robert, you want to jump in next?
Sure. Thank you for this. This has been a wonderful adventure getting here, and it's been awesome. I am a retired firefighter, lieutenant paramedic from a career fire department. Retired in 2016, and it was during that time that I found the healing power of horses and my own healing journey. And after retiring from the fire service, I founded my coaching company called The Heart of a Horse.
Okay.
And where I help people that have experienced emotional and spiritual trauma and how to finish that business so that they can live the lives that they are meant to live and deserve to live. And so I have a coaching practice. I help people that are new in recovery and traumas, from first responders to veterans to all of that. And I partner with horses to do so. So, and that's kind of, we'll get into the Fit for Service part, but yeah.
How
so
cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I'm actually excited to hear some more about that. I had a friend literally reach out to me yesterday. She helps people in jail recover from their trauma and their basically all kinds of issues from when they're children with horses, and they bring them to the jail and they help them work with that. So I'm interested to hear more of the details, because she also wanted to be on my podcast to help spread awareness of it.
Perfect.
So that's really cool. Just kind of synchronicity at the same time. Yeah, awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd love to share.
Katie, I'd love to hear a little bit about you and your journey.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here too with all of you guys, and I'm just down the road from you, so more of this.
Yeah, we'll definitely hang out more, for sure.
I was an athlete turned HR director turned psychotherapist, and just this year through Fit for Service and really like reclaiming my sovereignty, dropped the license to work as a coach as well, and I'm a mom in Long Beach with my daughters. So we hang out, me and Logan, she's 6. And I think this year, and I'm sure we'll get into this too, like also reclaiming what it means to be an artist. And I'm like really owning that as like my poetry and writing. So all the things. Nice.
I'm super excited to hear about the journey of why you decided to literally give up your license so you could go be a better coach. I know we kind of hit on it a little bit when we were in, I think, Sedona, but I'm excited to kind of elaborate some more on that today. Cool. So I wanted to start this podcast just by talking about how each one of us found Fit for Service or ended up in Fit for Service, and how we ended up getting there in our own journey in our own times. Does anybody feel the light to want to start first and start us on that? You want to go first? Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. For me, I'd been following probably like you guys, like Aubrey and Caitlin and Eric and Valana and Kyle. I'd been all into the podcast, but what really was like the catalyst for me was realizing, like in my individual therapy and all the books that I read, I was like, man, like I intellectually understand a lot, and I can make sense of my behaviors, and I can make sense of the way I show up in the world. I'm like, but I need like community. And I also I felt very vulnerable in like one-on-one settings, but sometimes when I saw videos of what the Fit for Service summits looked like, I'm like, ooh, Katie, that's an edge to be vulnerable in front of others and realize that like you're not a stranger, that you are the same as me expressing yourself in this meat suit. And I was just like, man,
Love that term.
I'm like, man, I think I need community. I think I need to push my edge in a group setting. And like, I'm proud of so much of the work that I've done individually, but for me, it was like really community, family, sisterhood. That was what drew me in.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah, that's when you bring that up for me, I remember too at that time, you know, I've been friends with a lot of my friends for a long time, and I have a huge social network, but I just realized that a lot of the conversations I was having within those networks weren't as stimulating as I would like them to be. And I was like, where can I go where I can go and have these conversations that my heart is literally yearning to have? And so like I was having them in a community called Sacred Sons, like we were dropping in there, but I also felt like I had been in Sacred Sons now for like a year and a half, and I'd gotten all the medicine that I needed. And sometimes, you know, when you go through like a certain thing over again, it just keeps reopening wounds. So I was like, what is the next transition? And so I definitely could feel the seek for that community, and definitely Aubrey's group was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then do you want to go, Scarlett?
Sure. Yeah. The whole journey has been just incredibly magical. It was 2020 that I think I came to Aubrey Marcus's podcast and was really receiving his story, his relationships, his experiences. And then I was also noticing in my own life this desire to get to know what sacred union is. And all in 2020, I, like we do as humans often, I externalized that journey of like, it's something that my partner needs to do with me, right? It's something I'm going to find in the outside. And then right before 2021, when I tuned into Fit for Service and the container and the program, I made that realization for myself that, oh, this is an internal journey. Sacred union is something that I'm going to give birth to and discover within myself, and the work is going to be within, which means me working with the divine feminine energy and the divine masculine energy within me. So synchronistically, I saw, okay, well, what's up with this Fit for Service program, which also was such an edge and a giant leap. And I think it's designed to be a giant leap, jumping into this portal of up-leveling in all the ways that we need to. And the theme of the trimester that was being offered when I was like ready was sacred union. And that was just like, that was it. I had to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's been this long, beautiful journey. And being here now feels like a sort of ceremony and graduation, actually, from that very beginning moment. And the fact that we're balanced in our, you know, women and men and the feminine is, there's been so many signs of this full circle since the beginning.
Yeah, no, and it's awesome that you also realize that we're not trying to be like two halves in a relationship, right? We're two whole persons, and that journey is really you just getting more acquainted with yourself. And as you heal and go through your own journey, you're going to be able to show up more for others and be in a more sacred partnership, or just have a more sacred union, whatever you want to call it. And so what comes to mind for me is like Peter Crone when he was talking. Did you guys ever listen to his podcast afterwards? Mm-hmm. That guy's a genius. He really brings into the whole fact that we have this whole misconception that we're two halves looking for the other half to make a whole person, but that's not it at all. We're both our own planets. We're both our own, you know what I mean, universes, and we're just revolving around somebody else's universe, and we grow together in sacred union. So that was a beautiful part of the journey for me, come to that conclusion too.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Also, just want to say thanks so much for coming to town, guys, because so Scarlett flew from out of state, Robert flew from out of state, Katie and I luckily live nearby here, but I really appreciate you guys coming in. This is a big deal. This is my first time doing a 4-person podcast too, so you know, this is exciting, and I just want to say thank you so much for flying in, because this was a lot of coordination to make this happen. So thank you guys for coming here too.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. Yeah, we were just speaking that so much opened up because of this trip. So many gifts.
Because we drew a 9.
Yeah. We can. Do you guys want to talk about that right now, and then we can talk about how we ended up in Fit for Service?
Yeah.
Let's talk about how we got here. So basically, Aubrey at one of the events, he had laid out 4 decks of cards, and the decks of cards were just laid on the table, and we were all told to go grab one card.
200 people.
Yeah, there was 200 people there, and basically whatever card you grabbed, we were put into groups. It was Clovers, spades, you know, normal deck of cards, heart, and what's the last one? Diamonds. Yeah. And so we all ended up having a 9 of Clovers. And so it's right here. Thank you for bringing it, Scarlett. So
Yes.
we ended up getting these cards, and we ended up in a group together. And our purpose of that meeting was to figure out what is the purpose of why the four of us were brought together. And I'm excited to kind of hear also what everybody else's journey is in all of this, because I think I only know really what we're doing. And so we ended up finding out that, well, when I suggested the podcast, we ended up finding out that your father lives here in Newport. And like, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think, let's see. Yeah, it's such a magical experiment, right? Okay, it's like, where to begin? Where to begin? I think, well, in the conversation, what started to be revealed was father-daughter relationships, right?
Yeah,
And
I was
father-daughter.
referencing my daughter, my oldest daughter.
Yes, yeah. And so we're taking the assignment really seriously. We're like looking to find the threads of the connections that's pointing us to the, and I've been calling it a surrender experiment. You're surrendering to the magic of life and the synchronicity of life, and kind of like this container to play around with that in like a controlled way, which I'd never done before. Let's do the exercise, pick the cards, find the people, and then be like, what magic is here.
Yeah, because everything happens for a reason. There's no mistakes in life, right? Everything's like a divine synchronicity. And that was like a big thing, is as we were like talking, you guys ever heard the term like Shakti, or like when you get goosebumps on your body?
Oh, yeah.
Like I felt as we were getting closer to why we were brought together, I kept feeling more like goosebumps and Shakti in my body. And then when I realized the podcast was probably the purpose, when I started saying it out loud, I could feel the Shakti through my body. Because I was like, no, this is it. This is why we're supposed to do this. And then when you started talking about your dad, I almost started crying, because then I started feeling the Shakti.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt the Shakti completely throughout my body, because it was the purpose of me saying the podcast was to bring you here to Newport so you could go talk to your pops.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you're pointing out the energetic experience of that, because I didn't know that you actually had that
Yeah,
experience.
I was, and I'm
But
feeling it
thinking
now
about
as we're talking about it
there
too.
was
Yeah.
a crescendo, like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
beautiful
Yeah.
movement of energy, and a crescendo as we're all being said.
Yeah.
And what an amazing exercise of intuition
Yeah.
and discernment and being in your body to feel and make decisions from the heart and the body instead of the mind.
Yeah,
right?
because we're all so different, right? I was like, why did we get brought together? What's the purpose of this? We don't do anything that's related in the same industry. Like, what's the meaning? And so we just kept talking, and then developing, and ended up leading to this. Yeah.
Yeah. It speaks to how devoted we all are, to being fully alive.
Yeah.
And being present.
Yeah.
So we had already mentioned father-daughter relationship. I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, I have a podcast. I can bring that. Well, okay. And then that was that moment too, where everyone's like, well, where do you live? Where's your podcast?
Yeah.
At Newport Beach. I'm like, guys, that's where my dad lives. Like,
That was
how magical.
It was like a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, it's like, well, there it is.
Yeah. Well, this was a big deal, because I know now you've already kind of reconnected with your dad, but how long had it been since you'd seen your dad at that moment?
Right. I mean, since I started having children, our coming together and our gatherings and our visits have only been centered around the children, like getting GPAW together, right? And so there was a little like subtle, unconscious letting our relationship go in that time, right? It wasn't about him and me spending quality time together anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think this is what it was, and it was much louder than a whisper in this exercise. It was not just a whisper. It was like, go visit your dad. It's not too late. Why not have special time and one-on-one time? And now, since we've been visiting for the past few days, like we're having the sweetest time, the sweetest time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking earlier today too, like, I think I had come to the decision that, well, this is just how it is now, and not realized, no, like we can still have our special relationship and choose to spend quality time together. Yeah. And it's been the best. Like we've seen full rainbows. We went out, we saw dolphins. We went on this amazing boat ride, 1,000 dolphins, full, like magic, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I hear an intentional relationship versus just letting it be what it is.
Right.
We're having the relationship with intent.
Yes,
that's
instead of, well,
really
now I'm a mom, I have kids,
Yep.
you're GPA. And so, yeah, really, really sweet.
That's really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and so that's how we ended up here today, and so that's all part of the journey. And so yeah, Robert, I'd like to let you continue how you ended up just in Fit for Service in general, since we kind of skipped
Sure.
over that.
I'm probably the newest to Fit for Service out of this group.
Yeah,
I came in midway through the year, so it was a 1-year container, and then they opened it up for 6 months.
Yeah. No,
And-
you joined halfway through also, right?
I did. I
did
jumped
as
in
well?
half year, but I am an alumni, right? So
Yeah,
I
okay. I
got
didn't
to
know
you had done
experience
it before.
2021.
I
yeah.
hadn't, prior to meeting my friend Michelle, I had never heard of Fit for Service.
Yeah.
And so I was introduced to Fit for Service through Michelle. And this was kind of her thing. You know, this was her woo-woo world, and I have my own woo-woo world. And so as we were kind of trying to figure things out, at one point she's like, come with me. And so that's when we first went to Texas.
Nice.
To Austin. And so the 2 events that we've done are my only 2 experiences with Fit for Service. I've listened to and once I got introduced, then I started listening to the podcast and began realizing that this was an edge for me. And this topic has come up of edges a couple times. This was an edge for me. You talked about connection and groups and things like that. And for me, it was an edge because I have not had male friendships for my entire life. And that was definitely an edge. So when that was an intent that I placed going into Texas was I'm going to intentionally begin meeting other men that are, and I knew that I was in the right environment for them to be open, to be, open to the universe, to, all the things that there are. And you had mentioned too, Joe, that we have conversations in the other world that aren't as deep, meaningful as we have in Fit for Service and within this community. And so I had a very strong desire to begin pushing my boundary, pushing my edge of developing male friendships, and that comes out of a trauma for when I was a kid. And so it was interesting to be in large groups in the woo-woo world, and also meeting men that somebody would give you a hug, and it's not just a side hug and a pat.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. It was
Yes.
a hug.
Aw.
Yeah.
It was, all of those types of things where you start to let down these stereotypical masculine, here's how we're supposed to show up in the world.
Yeah.
And here was a group of men. Yeah, I get touched by that.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a group of men that are really willing to be authentic. And that was probably the most beautiful thing that I've brought out of my very short time so far in Fit for Service is the authenticity of all the people that you have there that are present, but with the men. And so I appreciate my newfound friendship with you more than you know. And we can talk about the hat later. if
We
you
can
want.
talk about that later.
But yeah, but that's how I ended up in Fit for Service, was through kind of a referral, and I think you'd like this, and it absolutely fits with my beliefs and how I want the world to be, how I want connections to be in the world, how I want the connections in my world to be.
Yeah.
So
I love you.
I love you too.
Aw.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So as for myself, how did I end up in Fit for Service? So I ended up doing a lot of Sacred Sons like a couple years ago, which was a lot of healing of like childhood stuff, and just a lot of like mother wounds were like my particular thing. And then I went on a trip around the world to figure out who I am as a person, and disappeared for like basically 7-8 months and just traveled by myself. And then I got back and I went back to Sacred Sons. And I realized I had already gotten a lot of the medicine I need from it, and I was just reopening wounds. And so I was like, okay, what's the next step? And then just randomly in my life, a bunch of people just like randomly, one conversation would be about Fit for Service. And someone's like, oh, this person was like in Fit for Service. Oh, you should check out Fit for Service. And then all my advertisements on Instagram, they goddamn
heard
Instagram
you.
advertisements,
It heard you.
they get me, man. I buy pretty much everything that Instagram suggests to me.
God,
They're
yes.
killing
It's
it.
bad, but
Yeah.
I love it. So I mean, like all the stuff works, and so yeah, so it just kept suggesting it, and I was like, I'd been listening to some of Aubrey Marcus's podcast, because a bunch of Sacred Sons guys, they listened to it a lot, and they were sending me and I was like, you know what, this guy looks super dope. I'm like, for myself, like the whole reason I started this podcast is after Mateus kind of explained it at Arcadia, what philosophy means, it's philosophe, which is the love of knowledge, and basically like that endless search for like knowledge, because that's like true, at least for me, that's what I feel like the purpose of like life is. We should always be searching for new information, for learning more, because that's like what it's all about. And so I've always found myself to be a little bit of a philosopher, and so I started watching Aubrey, and I was like, this is for sure it. And then once I went to the first event, I was like, dude, this is freaking awesome. Like, a lot of other stuff I've done, it's like, it's very engaging. Like Sacred Sons, you go, you process stuff, but you don't learn as much as we learn at every one of these summits. And so I knew after the first event, I was like, I'm hooked. I'm going to keep doing this as long as they keep doing it. Like, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be beneficial every year, even to just see what they're learning and what's changing with them, because it's completely different than what they did a couple years ago, right?
Absolutely.
That's what I've heard. It just keeps evolving as they evolve.
Yeah, it's very alive.
Yeah, cool.
And I think of the Fit for Service tribe as one of these new thriving communities of new earth. You know, it's beautiful. Yeah.
And you see, that was the thing about Sacred Sons, is like, it was, it's very similar every single time. It wasn't like there was a bunch of new talks and new things. It really depended on each event, but every single event was completely different. And that's what I really liked about Fit for Service. It was a completely new experience everywhere we went.
Yeah. I've heard the coaches recently talk about that every summit is their own initiation.
Yeah.
They're like incredibly present and involved and going through it and growing with us, and then so the container and the program keeps evolving.
I feel that, and I also like see that in like you guys, and also like my other friends from Fit for Service and the tribes and the houses we stay at. It's like, man, like when I met you in January and the person you are now, that is like wildly different, and that's because we are evolving and changing our framework. Even the way people are dressing is shifting, and like the way they speak and the energy. And so it's like the coaches model that for us, of like they are always evolving and shifting, and then gives us permission to do the same. I feel that in my bones, you know?
You're absolutely right. I mean, I know for me, like I didn't feel really community until probably the third event. Like I felt like kind of like disconnected from people. I felt like I came, I met people, but I didn't stay in touch. But then after the third event, I started making like actual friends. It's also like at these events, there's no shallow conversation being had. So every time you talk to someone, you're going to get sucked in for about an hour, and you don't have a lot of hours in between the events. So you might make like one or two friends, but then by the time the third event had come around, finally there'd been like enough times where I'd made like 10 friends. And then finally, like the third and fourth event, just like those people that I became really close to, like, okay, these 6 people are awesome. And then it just flowered into better and better relationship. And so by the time we went to the last one, like at Arcadia, I was like, holy shit, dude, we have a whole crew. We're raging. And Arcadia was the festival thrown by Fit for Service, for anybody that doesn't know. And so we were able to rage. We had all of our people there, and I had so much fun there. It was awesome. Yeah, it was great.
And it's the community. It's the family.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like the family. No matter where you came from and what kind of family you had, this is your family.
Yeah.
And this is a place that you are loved and accepted however you show up.
Yeah.
Raw
it's like,
emotion.
Be more you.
Yeah.
More.
Be more. Be more
Yeah.
you. And where out there, it's so often, how do you shield up? How do you put on your armor? How do you, and Fit for Services, please drop your armor.
Yeah.
Please be vulnerable. Please be authentic. And that's the family. And to be loved and accepted in that vulnerability is a beautiful thing.
Several people brought up conversations to me that they were worried and they felt bad dropping on the people in Fit for Service. I'm like, literally, these are the people that want you to drop all your shit on top of them, and they want to be there to support you. There isn't a lot of places like that I've ever experienced. And so it's very, very unique, and like everybody gives you their full presence. And what I mean by presence is when you're talking to them, you're the most important person in the world. Everyone makes full eye contact. Like you said, the hugs, like it's not just this pat on the shoulder, like literally people hold you. And it's like they get excited when you cry. I don't know how else to say that. It's like weird and dark and strange, but they're like so happy to hold space. And there's not a lot of places like this, I think, in the world. And this is really what we should be striving for is in our normal day life, everybody should feel the safety to drop in and have these deep conversations, to express what's really going on. And so I like, honestly, the friendships that I've taken from this are going to last forever. And I hope we all stay in it for as long as possible. But it's been a beautiful journey getting to know everybody, which has been awesome.
We like don't let go when we hug. It's like, you know, in the real world, it's like you like hug and then you like bounce out. Like we like embrace.
Yeah.
And then someone else, I forget who it was. I was like, oh, I'm sorry I cried. And they're like, that is an orgasm for the soul. I was was like, all right.
Yeah.
Love
And
it.
now we're reminding each other, and you better be drinking your tears.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's right. We
God.
gotta drink your
That's
tears.
a whole nother.
So that's like the
I've
cosmic.
told like 10 people that in the last
science.
couple of weeks. They're like, "What is wrong with you?"
Oh my
I'm like, so okay. What Matthias DeStefano told us that they've done science. I think that he said that they did tests where
is,
basically when you
yes.
cry, you see that your tears are designed to drop into your mouth because they literally have medicine to make you feel better. And so I mean, I've been licking my tears since I've been crying lately, and I feel better when I lick them.
Yes,
I don't know if
man.
it's just a placebo effect, but it definitely, in my mind, it works. So
Yes,
for all those
yeah.
out there,
And
lick
you-
your tears, gypsies, collect your
I
tears,
know,
all the
new
above.
FFS,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, because I got to witness the Fit for Service tribe in 2021.
Yeah.
And so we weren't showing up like this back then.
Yeah.
You know, so it speaks to the integrity of the container. I always bring it back to the original dream seeds that Aubrey planted. You know, that have called us, you know, all together, and is like kept such a strong, clear, you know, healthy intention. But so, and it's from the work that we've all been doing, you know, since the beginning. You know, we're all connected, even though like this is a different group of humans. It's still the same tribe, and it's the same lineage of people evolving and growing and working. And personally too, like we're growing and evolving. So in 2021, the tribe wasn't showing up to this degree, and I wasn't showing up to this degree. And I remember that trimester was really hard for me to be seen, to use my voice, to participate fully, you know,
Yeah.
to like send videos on the app or whatnot, you know. So but still, like it's growing, it's changing, evolving, and everything. Okay, so then when I jumped in midway this year, it was so evident. Like I could just feel the energetics of the container, you know, was like way more alive and just different, right? So I jump in, I make my first post, right? Because this is me. I'm like, oh, I'm more comfortable here. I can show up a little bit more. I'm ready to be seen a little bit more. I make my first post, and then it's like swarmed with so many of the members just like welcoming me, cheering me on. I'm so glad you're here. You're beautiful. Just like, you know, you were saying, just a swarm of these. I was calling them love piranhas, you know, like whoosh, like right there
awesome.
to catch me, to hold me, to like partner with me. To,
Yeah.
It's so the growth in this short period of time is really significant.
Yeah.
Really significant. Yeah.
You know, when you're saying that, I just like feel like there's just been like a global allowance, a little bit more, for lack of a better term, of woo-woo, which is, it's not woo-woo, it's just people are becoming more conscious is what it is. So just as people are becoming more conscious across the board, I think people are feeling safer to express themselves. And so in a container like this, I think what I've just seen is all the people in this container feel safe to be who they are. And I don't know if I felt safe in the last couple of years to really express all these feelings and emotions that were going through me and able to really process through them. And I think it's because everybody's just kind of on this timeline of evolution where we're all on the same page, and we're all providing this safe space now where people can talk and they can express themselves and not just be immediately shut down like, oh, you're an idiot. What the fuck are you talking about? Stop expressing something that's woo-woo or just ridiculous.
Or making them feel uncomfortable because they don't want to deal with what's coming
Exactly.
up. Yeah.
And like I think a big part of it is like people like Joe Dispenza or Matthias DeStefano, where they're showing that like spirituality and science are the same thing. It's quantum physics and it's all these things that are not separate. They're all the same, and we're able to measure this and we're able to calculate it. And like Parl Check, even, where they talk about these things. So it's like, as we're seeing that there's no separation between any of this, I think it's providing a safe space for everyone to really express it without getting just immediately destroyed. Yeah.
And one of the things that came to mind, Joe, when you were talking about the community of Fit for Service, is that we've had conversations after going home was, how do we bring that level of connection and vulnerability and authenticity and the safe container, how do we bring that home and begin growing a community within our own spaces that's to that level, to that degree, where relationships are this important?
Yeah.
And
Which is one of the intentions.
exactly,
of Fit for
that's what
Service,
Aubrey
too.
wants, is for us to take this out and begin creating these environments for others, and that's been huge
to
for
create a more beautiful world.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's even the intention. I mean, we ended the Sedona Summit with this activity. This was like the ending of it. And that was the intention of this. It's like, okay, you guys have been in this like program. Now see where you end up and how are you going to bring it into the world. And this podcast is one way we're doing that.
And so we're bringing our thoughts and everything to
We're doing
your
it right
world.
now.
We're doing it right
Yeah,
now.
we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
This is like, when
yeah.
you're saying that, it's just like what comes to mind is like, you know, when they bring up the comment of like our biggest gift to people back at home is our regulated nervous system, right? But what does that really mean? It's just like as you improve as an individual, I think that is how you help everybody else around you improve, because you give them the space to be their natural selves, to be who they are as an individual. And like it also is like little things, right? Like when I lead my firm meetings, we start with breath work. We take a couple deep breaths. I say breathe in your gratitude, breathe out your stress. That's how we start our meetings. And then we talk about what are we grateful this week, and like just like little things that I think are practices that we learn through Fit for Service. You can apply it everywhere in your life.
Absolutely.
It's just up to you to do it. And like a big part for me is like I try, like every time we go to one of the summits, there's like 3 or 4 things that really hit with me. I'll come back and I'll post it on my social media. That's another way of you sharing, right? Because as Eric was saying, is like, you know, somebody was like, well, it's hard to be that vulnerable or to share those things on your social media. I'm like, but that's art. It's not meant to be easy for anyone. It's meant to push you out of your limits, to push you out of your space. And as you were talking about too, with like the poetry thing, like I started writing poetry again after Caitlin's workshop, and I never shared it publicly, but then I had one of my best friends passed away a couple of weeks ago. He fell asleep while driving at the wheel, and I wrote a poem and I shared it at his memorial, and I've never shared poetry before. And so it's like, this is how we're doing it. You're just living the way that you've been taught and the way you've learned now through these experiences, and you're taking it back home to the people that have not seen anybody do this, and then you're giving them the space to allow them to express themselves in the same way.
And when you said that we're offering the world, and your words were much better than how I'm going to paraphrase it, but we're offering our communities a more centered emotional fitness.
Yeah.
And
I like the way you said it.
yeah. But what happens, you know, and I'm thinking about, because I've done some social media posts where you post some things that are vulnerable. And if we were doing that in the Fit for Service community, it's 100% received.
Yeah.
When you do it in the social media, you are subject to the trolls.
Yeah.
And it takes for me, it took my growth, my personal healing to get to a point where I was emotionally centered enough that those trolls, or the people that either didn't understand or didn't want to understand. And the term I use is we can share in Fit for Service, and we can share within our container, the 4 of us.
Yeah.
And what we share doesn't get weaponized.
Yeah.
And so when we're vulnerable in social media, we run the risk of what we're sharing being weaponized against us. And so it took my own growth, and I'm still learning, but the more centered I get, the less vulnerable I am to people that weaponize what I share.
So when you say that, I like almost like got teary-eyed, because it reminded me like recently, what I've learned is as I find myself becoming more conscious and wanting to become a better human, everybody around me is holding me to a higher standard, and it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But as I've been healing and going through this, people keep bringing up fucked up shit that I did to them when I was younger. Yeah. And that's part of the journey. It's like, oh, you think that you're this great person now, or that you're a good human, or that you have a good heart, but what about when you did this? Yeah. And so that's part of it is, if you're going to share stuff that triggers someone that you hurt, then it will get weaponized against you. But that's also, it's not weaponized. That's somebody just washing their karma with you.
Absolutely.
And that's something you did to them. And that's also an opportunity for you to heal. So it's like, you know, for me, it's just been making sure that when I get triggered, to not fall back into old patterns of, you know, for me, fight or flight. I'm a big flight person, not being avoidant, not like disappearing, not being like, well, fuck you, bye. Like literally sitting there and receiving it. And then also opening the door completely and receiving whatever else is in there, so that I know that it's done and it's been washed. And that's been like a huge part of my journey, is just like, as I'm, you know, feel like I'm improving, just allowing whatever I did in the past to come forward. And it sucks. It's painful. I've been through a lot of crying and painful things, and also just being revealed how selfish and unconscious I was most of my life. And that's not a great feeling at all, but it's also just part of the journey.
And what does Maya Angelou say? When we know better, we do better.
We know better, we do better.
Yep. And for me, when I think of, as things come up and people raise their concerns about maybe how I was in my past, to me, that's different. When I say weaponize, it's somebody takes something that they know is a vulnerable point, and they save it until just the right time when they can now stab you with it. But
that's their own insecurity.
It's their deal. But it takes, I need to have the emotional fitness to not have that become about me.
Well, you have the emotional fitness.
Yeah. And so that's been my journey, is
Yeah.
to learn that emotional fitness, to be able to stand for what I believe in.
Yeah.
And I believe in vulnerability. I believe in, I heard a great quote once for men and for me in one of the ways, because I'm way more feminine than I am masculine. I grew up with my mom and it was just her and I.
Yeah.
My siblings are all older, so I'm much more in the feminine world than I am in the masculine world. And so my part of my journey has been, how do I become so strong I'm soft? That's been my my career as a firefighter and everything else, a very masculine career, but my emotion, I'm way more emotional than
And that is I love that, because I think going back to like what Joe was saying, like if you're in the ring and you're like, evolving and you're being vulnerable, and then people from your past, they're like coming in and they're bringing up old stuff. It is so courageous to be like I'm sorry, and I love you, and I must like to soften into that, because I too like you, and like I'm like screw that, and you like want to bounce, but that's nothing's courageous about that. There's something like to just really soften into it, and I think Fit for Service has helped me with that, because I've never entered a space where I have felt so much love from strangers. Like I go home on Thanksgiving or Christmas with my family, and I don't feel that much love and that much permission, and so I think like getting a taste of it, it's like, ooh, like now that I know what this tastes like, I can also create that. And like you feel it in your body, you know? But yeah, that softening, I feel you on that.
And how do I show up and model how I want people around me to show up?
Yeah.
So I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be conscientious, because that's the people that I want to be surrounded by.
Yeah. I mean, I understand being in the feminine. I have more girlfriends than guy friends for sure. And it was because my mom was so masculine with me when I was a child, when I went through what I went through, but also because she was so aggressive with me. I also have no problem stepping into my power and my masculinity, probably more than like 99% of the men, because of the way that I was treated as a kid. So it's like I like have this kind of dichotomy, and I actually like sitting in my feminine, because I do prefer actually feminine energy a lot of times over males, because males are aggressive and just a lot of stuff that they're working through. But I mean, I think that that's just part of the journey, is finding the balance between both. And just like with Scarlet and Katie, right? They have a masculine and feminine side too.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the biggest misconception that we have in the world, is that as a male, you have to be masculine. As a female, you have to be feminine. No. As a human being, you need to be both.
Yes.
And you need to be able to step into both whenever you need it, and not being like afraid of it, And I think for me, like what comes up is like, I'm afraid to step into my masculinity, because I don't want to be the way that I was treated as a child, and I don't want to be super controlling, and I don't want to be aggressive, and those are the things that I like almost correlate with like being masculine. But it's not all like that. There's just so many different aspects to masculine and feminine sides, and so it's just finding the balance between both in your life, and just being able to be what you need at that exact moment.
Yep.
And that's been like the men, I mean, the women of Fit for Service have healed me for sure in sisterhood, but also like it is the men. Oh my God, because there is like a different story that I'm learning of what it means to be in your masculine. And it's like, it is soft. It's like, and I think Aubrey says like the man is the mountain. It's like you can come with anything, and it's that like regulated nervous system. Like that is like a man and his like divine masculinity is like, I got this. And to be contained by that, by the men in our container, when you like have emotions, or to just feel that like security, it's like so beautiful, and it feels so safe, and it allows me as a woman to like soften and be everything that I am, and it's been so beautiful and so healing.
Amazing. I just had a realization about that, connecting that to what you were saying, because it's also been a game changer for me, the softening and the leaning in to the triggers and the uncomfortable sensations within me, and allowing that, just like we would another person, like you were saying, just welcoming them and not pushing back and resisting, and then tracking it. I think you were mentioning tracking that feeling down to anything else it's connected to, which I want to bring up the analogy of the tree, but what you were just saying about I think that's the masculine part of me that's holding that strong presence, while the feminine is like
She's the weather.
Squirming and responding and screaming or crying or just like expressing what that feeling, you know? So I love that. I just put that together, you know, that the masculine does that for us. But this analogy of the tree also keeps coming up in Fit for Service, you know, like Eric Godsey's favorite analogy he brings up a lot, the Jungian story of the acorn, you know, and the idea is that we all have this acorn within us that has the design, the destiny of becoming its own unique, beautiful, gorgeous oak tree, right? But it's like the process of that seed having to break and shatter and dissolve and transform and, you know, become the tree is, I think, really a lot about, you know, what the Fit for Service journey is teaching us, you know, following the whispers and the daemon. But I've had this new vision with the tree where I'm receiving, you know, input from my reality, and then the triggers, the discomforts, or wherever I am on my healing journey, and I'm following it down to the roots, and I'm finding anywhere that there has been damage in my roots, you know, from childhood or whatever, and tending to those places and loving those places and learning and understanding what the heck is going on there, restoring health and nourishment so that then that can travel up and help the new branches grow and the new leaves grow and everything for ultimately us to serve our medicine, which I like to think of as our flowers and our fruits, you know, which is our art and our truest self-expression. Yeah, for the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you say that, it reminds me of a medicine journey that I did. I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna talk about it. I've done ayahuasca, right? And so I did it in a ceremonial space, and basically, when I did that, what you're talking about, like going down to the roots, I went in there with specific intentions. So there were things that I really needed to work on and things that I thought were the problem. What ended up happening is I would think about the problem, and then it would just take me on this long, long journey where it's like, actually, what led to this moment? What did you do here? Why did you make that choice? Okay, why did you do that? Okay, this person got you here. Why did you end up hanging it with this person? And I just went on this long journey, and I'm getting, as you bring up the tree, I'm getting to the roots, and I'm going lower and lower and lower. As I'm getting like lower and lower and lower, I get physically more and more ill, and I feel it like it's ready to like purge. And then I would get to this original moment where I'm like, this is where it all stems from. And then I literally purge and remove the toxin from my body. And then I was like, this is why I've been doing this my whole life. And so I think that's what it comes down to most of the time is you need to get to the root cause.
Amen.
You know, we're seeing the symptom.
Yep.
The symptom is you did this. This happened. This is real. Now, how did you get here? And the thing is, most people don't take longer than 10 minutes in a meditation to really think about things. But sometimes it takes hours just to figure out, you know, the whole journey of what led to these life decisions and why you act a certain way and do things a certain way. So, yeah, so that analogy is beautiful because, we're all trying to get to the root. And then if you can heal it from the roots, you can heal the whole tree. And so it's just one part at a time. And even like during a medicine journey, you're literally purging the toxins that are making the tree sick.
That is amazing. Yeah,
And that's
taking the time.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the differences between this community and what I will refer to as out there. So often, I think people are living unconsciously, and there's a belief that I am who I am, I show up as I show up because that's who I am.
Yeah.
It's like, no, there's some stuff underneath there.
Yeah.
Not to mention like a fast pace of life. Like go. And don't feel the uncomfortable stuff.
Do more.
I mean, ignorance is bliss, right? If you don't know about your problems, you don't have to deal with them.
So,
very real.
Yeah. And one of the things that Katie, that you mentioned that I wanted to reference, because I do live in that more emotional side of the world. And that's been something for me has been a source of shame, right? Because I am emotional and I'm well aware of it. I know that it's not received well. You know, that's what I was taught as a child, that, you know, stop crying, that kind of thing. And
don't ever stop crying.
Yeah, don't ever stop. I've given up.
But drink your tears.
But drink your tears.
It's an orgasm for your soul.
It's an orgasm for my soul. I'm taking that one, Katie. But what I've found is that I needed to make peace with the fact that this is who I am. And how in that journey of learning to become more centered. And I love learning now that I can hold that masculine space And I also, as a man, I also need permission to not hold that space, because there's times that I too am not in a great place that I can hold that energy. And there's a little quip from another person that I follow on that's very big. And I don't know if I can or should say her name, but anyway, Brene Brown. Okay, but it's like, you know, my wife and daughters in this scenario that she was talking about would rather see me die on my white horse than see me fall off.
Yeah.
And I personally, and I know this for me, I need to be living and thriving in an environment where, yes, I can hold that masculine space and I can be that for you. And I also need to be able to fall off my horse without fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Like, oh, see, I knew you couldn't do it. Yeah. You're just, yeah. So I need that safety of being able to be vulnerable and be authentic, because sometimes I'm not in my great, strong space. Sometimes I am in the emotional space, and I will pick myself back up. I will recoup. I will get, but I need to be able to be there safely.
Yeah, and
Feel it, move through it, and go on.
And I feel like I can't trust you unless you do that, right? Like I only can trust you if you are able to be vulnerable and have the courage to be like, hey, Katie, like, I don't got it right now. Like, I'm in a now I trust you as a man. Like, I think when we put on the masks and we're just like, there's no trust there. So that
incongruent.
Yeah.
And a lack of connection. I love how you explained that. That makes also me feel very connected to my man.
Thank you.
I also wanted to say, I think that you're waiting for the safety from other people. You need to find the safety within yourself.
And it's, yes, and I completely agree with you. And we can surround ourselves with people that aren't healthy.
No, of course.
And that's where we recognize, this isn't a healthy place for me.
Yeah.
And being able to have the strength, the inner strength to be able to say, this is not a safe place for me.
Yeah. And I agree with that too. And I think that, once again, not to like discredit anything, I just think that you need to find the safety within yourself, even when you're in the worst scenarios with the worst people.
Self-soothing.
Yeah, self-soothing, because that for me has been like the biggest journey, is because you know what I mean? Like, all day long, I'm dealing with people in their heavy situations. And it took, and like, luckily this is something that I get to practice every day, is learning to find safety in my body, no matter what is happening around me or what is being told to me. So that journey of, yes, it is amazing to feel like you're in a safe space where people are going to hold you and it's great and you can express yourself, but that's just not how life is 90% of the time. And so finding that safety within yourself, I think is however you want to figure that out, is the biggest part of the journey. And then if you can find safety even in the scariest of scenarios, then you're not looking for it from others, you just find it from yourself.
And that was my career in the fire department.
Yeah.
I needed to be able to maintain in some...
So you were a firefighter?
Yeah. Yep. I was.
What's the craziest firefighter story you have?
Oh my God.
I want it.
Craziest. There are some that are tragic crazy.
Yeah.
And there are some that are funny crazy.
Let's go with funny crazy.
Go funny crazy. Funny crazy. Well, I don't know that it would be appreciated if you haven't ever done it, but there's a certain exhilaration to going into a building that's completely on fire and there's fire
I'm getting excited thinking
rolling
about it.
over your head.
He's like, I don't know if you've ever done it.
So
I have not.
Yeah, it's so, it's an intense, when we did the sweat lodge, it was kind of taking me back to what it's like to be working in a involved structure fire. And just, it's going to war, you're battling this red demon, and it is insane.
Wow.
And when you're doing that type of thing, crazy. I'd have to think about it. I'll mull that over as we go along.
Yeah, mull it over. But I'm
craziest-
sure there's been so many like emotional benefits from being able to like run into a building on fire. You're like, this is not a big deal.
This is not a big
Everyone
deal.
needs to calm down.
Everybody,
This building is
exactly,
not
just-
actually on fire. It might feel like it is, but it's not.
And it's true. What's real and what's perceived, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's like, no, I've done this. This is okay.
Yeah, this is
I've
fine.
been there. This
Yeah.
is nothing.
This is not a
Yes,
big deal.
there's absolutely that. But there was a lot of that job taught me a lot of different things about sitting with people that are in their own traumas.
Yeah,
However, whatever my view of their trauma is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is yours, and it's the biggest thing in your life ever.
Yeah.
To me, this is the 10th thing that's happened today for you.
Yeah.
Right? And so learning how to be present with people when they're in that moment
Yeah.
in their life, and this is a huge deal. There's so many just beautiful things that came out of it, and the tragic and the things that you can never unsee.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that it'll just
Yeah.
never be able to unsee or unexperience.
Yeah. Dude, that's
So
what you brought up about like being present for people. That's something I've been like struggling with like lately, because sometimes people call me like my clients when I'm like in the best of moods, and like I'm like, you know, I have my life that's going on, but they're like in a most depressed, injured, like painful state. And like also just recognizing that learning to be present for people even when it's not correlating with where you are as a person is a really it's an important skill set for people that hold space, because there are times which is it's just going to shift your entire reality or just shift your entire energetic sphere. And so being able to like do that also without having it like destroy or affect you is something that's like a protective skill too.
That is a learned skill.
Yeah.
And you hear about that a lot, where people that are, especially in the healing services, they take on and they take on and they take on. So how do you, there's a fine line, there's a balance between, and a lot of it for me, because I haven't always done it well.
Yeah.
And the more that I healed my past traumas, the more centered I became, allowed me to be present and detached, fully connected and not
like vulnerable.
I'm here with you, but I'm not being poisoned by whatever's going on. I can hold that healthy space for me and be very present for you.
Yeah.
And that's I think I had the opportunity to learn to do that within my job. But then when I went to school for the coaching that I do, and I went to a program out in Colorado called Touched by a Horse, and that was where I really started to learn about how do you connect and be present with somebody in their most vulnerable moment, and how to hold that space. And so I was able to take the lessons that I learned in 30 years in the fire service to what I'm doing now. And I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love what I do.
As a therapist, that's like so big, because obviously like to be able to separate, it's huge. But I do think, going back to like how our healing impacts our ability to hold space, like we can only meet other people at the depths of which we met ourselves, or that we meet ourselves. And so I feel like I, as a therapist, will never stop going to therapy.
Exactly.
Because it's like, I want to go to every shadow, every part of my psyche, so that someone can come to me. And I'm like, yeah, I've been there.
Yep,
Me too.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's yours. I can relate. And I'm sure you've noticed too that even though we're oftentimes on this side of the table, all of a sudden there'll be like, there'll be another new layer that'll just pop up, and you're like, there's a new layer of that I dealt with to a certain level. I healed it, moved through it, and then all of a sudden something will come up and you go, you're ready for the next level of uncovering that trauma and healing that trauma. And I think that our nervous systems and the universe work with us to say, okay, you're ready for the next level. You're ready to heal that to another depth. And every now and then it'll be like, that's still there. Okay, hello puppet. So
Beauty of the shadow work.
Oh man, I think of it. I'm a horse trainer as well. I mean, that's how I do the coaching with the horses. It started with me being a professional horse trainer. But one of the lessons with horse training is that we call it no brace. So if the horse does something, kind of the horse braces, and then I brace against the horse. Now the horse is bracing against me some more, and then I brace more. I'm like, man, how that so applies in the human world too, in my human relationships. So often when somebody gets bracy, if I just don't brace, there's nothing for them to push against.
Yes.
There's just, it falls on empty air if I'm just holding space rather than bracing. And so some of those lessons, it's a softening, right? Not giving in, not being bowled over. I mean, it's holding a boundary, but saying, no, I'm just going to hold this softly. and I don't brace against you, and it allows them, and I've found this in my, you said you're more of an avoidant, and I'm familiar with that in my world as well. If I can hold that space softly, it allows you to find your space. I just hold, you can find it, and then we can move on. So I don't know how I went down that tangent.
I don't know. But going back to Brene Brown, she talks about that like strong back, soft front, open heart, right?
Yes,
so it's like, there's some things I'm gonna stand for, right? Because as humans, like we cannot, we're not neutral, and there are things that like we need to take a stand for. Open heart to everyone I come in contact with, and like soft front, like lean into things, Love Brene Brown.
I do too.
So good.
Thank you, Brene. I want to be on your podcast too.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do with the horses and like what that program is? And
absolutely, I would
Touched
love
by
to.
a Horse? Is that what it's called?
Well, that's the program that I went to school for.
Okay.
My business is called The Heart of a Horse. TheHeartOfAHorse.com. It started. I think I'm going to give you a brief backstory to it, just because it plays into why I do what I do. But
you what? Touched by a Horse side of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know how much I liked that name, so I'm glad you chose The Heart of a Horse.
The Heart of a Horse.
Okay,
it started with there was a Touched by an Angel, was a TV show years ago. I think that's where she got it from.
Yeah.
She would love to change it now. It's so branded.
No, of course.
And
I literally thought of I thought of Touched by an Angel when you said it, but I was like, obviously this is a good intention, but it's still it's so funny.
You're right down that rabbit hole. I had gotten horses in 2000. I got my first horse in 2005.
And where do you live, by the way?
I'm in Wisconsin. I'm if anybody's familiar with Wisconsin, Eau Claire.
Okay. And do you have like a big ranch or?
Big for me.
Yeah.
I've got 34 acres.
That's big.
It's those of you in California.
Let's be clear. We get like 400 feet.
Yeah.
So 34 acres is a bit.
I have 34 acres. I have a home that's pretty much dropped right in the middle of that acreage. I never will see my neighbors, which fits for I have a portion of me that is an introvert. And so sometimes if I'm peopling too much, I've got to go home. And if I'm home too much, I got to go people. So I'm pretty split, 50-50. But yeah, I've got a beautiful piece of property in Mondovi, Wisconsin, if anybody's at home. And but in 2005, I got my first horse. And I'd always wanted horses. Didn't have the space, didn't have the finances and that kind of thing. So I got my first horse. And then in 2007, I had a work accident. And it was an awakening. Everything that I'm doing today is because of that accident. And it was a very before and after event in my life. It was a near drowning under ice. And so what I found, it does kind of still.
Oh, yeah.
And as I was really trying my best to find my way through that, I was I didn't want to be here. I had passed. I was unconscious and not breathing when I was brought up, and there was a beautiful peace that was present, and then I got ripped out of it to be brought back. And so for quite a long time afterwards, I was really angry that I had been taken away from this level of peace that I had never, ever experienced before in my life. And
so you think you crossed over?
I went into
details.
I was in respiratory arrest, meaning I'd stopped breathing.
Yeah.
But I hadn't gone into cardiac arrest yet.
Yeah.
So I hadn't died.
Okay.
But we were on the threshold of that.
Yeah.
When I was under the ice, it went from a level of panic. I had an equipment malfunction. If you scuba dive at all, my first stage regulator failed.
Okay.
So it blew my mask and my hood, and so
And you were scuba diving in ice?
Yes, I was under the ice. We were doing a search and recovery training dive.
Okay.
And so in that, you cut a hole in the ice. That's where we enter. I was 80 feet from my entrance hole when the failure happened, and it happened on an exhale. So the amount of time that you can hold your breath when you're very excited is decreased anyway. It was on an exhale, so I had a very, very short window. And the level of panic as I was going through
Were you down there by yourself?
Yeah.
Where was your safety person?
You don't in public safety diving. You don't have a backup. You don't have a buddy.
Even when you're training?
Yep. No.
Got it.
Yep. We're connected. We're tethered.
Okay.
So I had a communication line and a rope that went to the
Okay,
surface.
so to another person.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
And so, and
That's
that
what I
was
like, how did they know you were under there?
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
and that was, so I had two people. One person was on my safety line and one person was on my comms, on my communication line. And so when they lost communication, Mark gratefully didn't mess around with it. He was just like, yeah, we lost comms, pull him in. And so, but now you're hand over hand pulling somebody in from 80 feet away through water. It was, I will tell you that for me, it was about 3 months is how long it took, right? But the level of panic was indescribable. The level of peace, at this last fit for service, as above, so as below.
Yeah.
The level of panic was indescribable. The level of peace was equally indescribable. And so to be ripped from that peace was horrendous. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
And I wanted to return to that peace for probably 6 months. Like suicide was like right there. It's like, I can very easily go right back to that.
Wow.
I can go back to that. And so, but I found that it was my time outside with my horses. That was the only place that I could be. I could hurt, I could cry, I could be lost. They didn't care.
Aw.
And so it was, the name came from, it was through the heart of a horse that I finally began to heal. So after I did end up going back to work, worked for several more years. When I retired, the program, Melissa Pierce's program, came across my radar a couple times, took the school. And so what I do is I partner with horses. It's not activity-based. There are programs out there where you do an activity with a horse and then you debrief the activity. Think of it as if Joe and I were coaching a client. We have two coaches, one client. In my case, my co-coach happens to be on four legs and wear a fur
Be
coat.
a horse, yeah.
Happens to be a horse. And so they will show up. Horses just have a beautiful energy to them anyway. People generally just feel good being around a horse. It's not something you can explain. It's intangible, but there's a grounding, there's a peacefulness to horses. So just their innate spiritual being that they are, sentient beings that they are a grounding factor for clients that are in having their worst, going through their worst
Dark
experiences.
night or whatnot, yeah.
And then they will show up in ways that I can't predict. I do my best through my horse training and learning to read body language and behavior and why do horses do what they do. And they're masters at seeing incongruency. They do not like incongruency. And so sometimes, and I've got wonderful stories sometime if you want, of how horses have shown up where it's like, wow, you just can't even make that up. And then it's through coactive coaching questions and different things that.
What's a
what's
coactive
underneath
coaching question?
Coactive coaching questions, probably the easiest way to explain it is not yes or no. So if I said, Joe, your mother taught you about being a man.
It's a leading question.
It is.
Yep. So no leading questions.
Well, no, it is. I want the leading question.
You want to lead
I
it.
want
Okay,
the leading
got it.
question. What did you learn? So open it up instead of making it a yes or no. I want you to begin. So I'm gonna question you as we're going through a session in such a way that I'm going to keep looking for pearls. I'm going to keep looking for what's underneath, following the roots. And if I can help you, because as a coach versus a therapist or a counselor, therapy and counseling have diagnoses. I don't diagnose. Not my job, not trained. I'm a coach. I'm not a counselor or therapist. But there's a diagnosis typically in therapy, right? And as a coach, I believe that my client is whole and resilient as you sit here. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not damaged. Something happened to you. That's it. You have the answers that you're looking for in your life. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, you have the answers. They're already within you. But they're in your blind spot. They're just out of your awareness. My job as a coach is to set up an experience. I happen to do it with horses and without. but I'm going to set up an experience so you can find your own answer, because those are the ahas that we remember most.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in your life. I don't know what's best for you, but my job as a coach through coactive coaching is to help you discover your own answers that are already within you, because you are resilient. You're
Like a
perfect
loving
as you
guide.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the horses are amazing at it.
Cool.
Very cool.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you? What's
I
that?
have a question.
Raise
Yeah.
your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always please. This is not. By the way, this is not an interview. This is everybody here can ask
Now I'm
and
scared.
talk about whatever. Yeah, please.
I think like when you were telling your
Thank you for
story,
raising your hand.
when you were telling your story about, being underwater and
Yeah.
the, experiencing almost like a taste of like death.
Yeah.
I think like the shadowy dark side of me feels like I'm just so intrigued. I think clients I've worked with that have near-death experiences, they come out and there's almost like this like second lease on life of like, yeah, I'm going to do this and do this. And what I felt from you is like, ooh, death tasted good. And I kind of want to go back there. And I've never met someone that has expressed that in that way. And I'm like wildly interested about that. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
It was so both of your statements are 100% accurate. I was given back the gift of time. And that's exactly how I say it. I didn't come to that realization. It took me probably a good couple years before I actually began to feel and see the gift that was in that accident. And yes, I have been given back the gift of time, and I do not want to squander it. I absolutely don't want to squander it. I'm here for a purpose. I was not taken for a reason. My tattoo says still here.
Let's go.
Let's go. Right? There's been a lot of close calls, that being one of the bigger ones. And I'm still here. Why am I still here? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? What gift have I been given? How can I use the gift of time and the gift of intuition, any of the gifts that Spirit and the universe gave me? How do I best use those? Because clearly I was given back the gift of time for a purpose. So yeah, I'm beyond grateful that I was brought back. Because I don't get to do this. I don't get to meet you guys. I don't get to do Fit for Service. There's a million things that have occurred since 2007 that I am amazingly grateful for, and looking for the flowers in life rather than looking for the weeds, right? That came out of that drowning. Looking for the flowers. Where are the beautiful things in life? Because at times I have looked for evidence that the world sucks and it's a horrible place. I found it. And every single time that I put in the effort to look for where life is beautiful, I found it. And that drowning, and once I got out of the initial stages of healing of that, so yes, I got a new lease on life. I don't know how much time I got left. I know what the end looks like and feels like. I'm good, right? When we get there, we get there. I just didn't really like the panic right beforehand. If we could skip the panic and just do the void, perfect. I'll take it, right?
That's also the beauty of life, the ups and downs, right? You can't have that huge down without the huge up. Yeah.
And it was so is above, so is below, right? And it was exactly that.
Those questions you were asking, like why am I still here? Why? It's reminding me of the questions, our circle experiment, and those questions, and it's giving me this insight of asking those questions all the time, every day, with whoever we meet, everything coming in this magical, mysterious way. And the assignment is, to show up fully and figure out, like, really get into the why and then make the most of it. Like, diving into this trip has been so up-leveling for me and, all of us.
Absolutely.
But that I'm living in this new dimension of possibility and adventure and gratitude to receive, what's being offered to me. Instead of doing another path, because there's like infinite number of paths that we could take. But let's say that I didn't jump into Fit for Service, I didn't show up to Sedona, I didn't do this circle game, there I would be on a completely different path.
And was it
You know?
Eric that said all rivers lead to the sea?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the second part of your question?
That's the part I really want.
Which was?
It's the death
Yeah.
tasted good. You
Oh,
liked
death
it,
tasted
like,
good.
and it almost you almost like wanted
Yeah.
to go back to
There
it.
was a freedom to it. My past, my childhood, my family of origin stuff, everything had been very tumultuous. Life, and I view it differently now. But so if I were to step back, if I was to step back and say this is how I viewed life, it's not how I view it now. But if I went back a ways, I would say that life wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Life was emotionally difficult. It was, I don't fit in. I don't, all the crap, right? On top of the traumas, on top of the sexual assault, on top of the work traumas, on top of all the stuff you can, right? For so long, it felt like there was a price to life. Like, yep, I've got this great life to live, and I paid a price to live it. And in that moment, when it went from panic to peace, and truly indescribable peace, all of that was finally done. All of that was put to rest. There was no more concern about it. There was no more, it was a level of peace that was absolutely right to my core. And so I didn't have to worry about, I didn't have to think about the whys.
Like
I didn't have
hold
to, it
it.
was just, I didn't have to hold it anymore. It was finally done.
Yeah.
And then somebody got the bright idea to pull me out, right? And I came out screaming. I mean, when I came to, that's my first memory is all the screaming that I couldn't do under the water, under the ice. I mean, I was hitting my head on the ice. I could see daylight. I could see, and your chest is burning, and I couldn't scream. You can't, I couldn't do anything. So the moment that when I came to, they were stripping my gear off, getting ready to start CPR and start resuscitation, and they said it was like you just woke up. Was the way they described it.
It sounds like a birth.
It was.
A birthing.
It was absolutely a birth.
And screaming.
And it was
taking
so.
your first air.
At one moment I was here, the next moment I'm here. Yeah. One moment I'm just doing a routine dive that I've done for 12 years. The next minute, And so it was so quickly, two different places, two different emotions. It was just like instantaneous. And it was beautiful. I am telling you, that piece is the most beautiful thing. I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of beautiful things in the world, and that was one of them. That was truly one of them. And so now I'm brought back to a world where people don't believe me. People think that I had coworkers, I had bosses at work, thinking that I was making a big deal out of it. I actually had one say to me, "What's the big deal, Rob?"
Oh my God.
What's the big deal, Rob? He said, "You were 15 feet from the hole. What's the big deal?"
That's one of the worst things you can say to someone else.
Yeah. And he's like, "Well, you didn't die." Like, right. So, I mean, this is what I was brought back to. I was in a relationship at the time that was already falling apart. This didn't help. I mean, my world went into complete chaos. Like, what? Okay, great. You saved me. Thank you very much. What did you save me to? This? I had that.
Nope.
I had that piece. And you saved me for this? Fuck you. Right? But I will tell you, without that, I don't do what I do. I can't sit in my arena with the horses with a veteran who talks to me about the level of panic and lost time, where they are one place and they have a panic attack and the next thing they know, they come to and they're under their bed, right, because of fireworks, or a first responder that can't drive through an intersection without seeing a child. I don't have that relatability, like you mentioned. I don't have that without that accident. So without that, I can't do what I do. Without my sexual assault, I can't sit with somebody, a client. I've had so many male clients that this is so underreported. There are so many men that have been sexually assaulted by other men, by women, and they don't talk about it. And to be able to sit in my arena with somebody, male or female, who has had their sexual boundaries violated and not be able to have at least some inkling of understanding when you talk about when that person discusses with me about safety and what it feels like to be in a room with somebody. So was my assault a gift? Absolutely, because it allows me the opportunity to show up for other people. That's the gift of being saved. That was the gift of being pulled out. Because now I can take, and it was because of that accident that allowed me this journey of learning to do what I do, why I do it, how did that help me, how can I serve you? All of that, all of the things, everything led up to today. What's the quote? Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward. For me to connect the dots of what my past brought me to, they were some of the most horrible experiences of my life, and I wouldn't trade any of them. None of them, because it allows me to learn and show up and grow. And I got a long way to go. I got a long way to go. But yeah, telling you.
What was the quote again?
Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward.
Cool. Yeah. Do me a favor, Jim. Pick up your mic and move it 4 inches this way because you're talking mostly this way. Thank you.
That way.
Much better. Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
I love the paradoxes of life, right?
Yeah.
And those moments are some of my favorite moments. And I haven't had many of those moments. I think the older I get, the more of those moments I'll have. That feeling of like, oh, everything makes sense. That's why that happened.
That's why that
and
happened.
all the pieces lead up to now this profound moment of meaning and purpose and pleasure,
And
whatever
that's
it is.
growth. When we can take those experiences that at the time we viewed as negative or destructive, growth is, because if we stay there, that's the victim, isn't it? My life would be so much better if this never would have happened. It's the growing, healing person that can say, what did I learn from that?
And that back to, it's the alchemy of the shadow
Yes.
as well, bringing it all together.
And I'm glad you said that, because you brought me back to, I didn't finish the statement when I talked about brace.
Oh, yeah.
My entire thing lately has been, how do I learn to dance with my shadows?
Ooh.
I'm going to dance with them.
Yeah.
Not fight them, not try to banish them, not trying to blow them up. I just want to dance with you.
And then they transform into what their true nature is. You know, it's reminding me of dream work, right, that we were doing with Eric Godsey. And, you know, he planted this seed in my conscious mind and my subconscious mind a year ago or so, that in those dreams where this scary monster, the shadow is like expressing as this really threatening, scary event in your dream, and you believe it and you're terrified. So you do like what is instinctual to do, and is turn around and run away or just get away or hide or whatever. But he said, when you can get to the point where you behave in a brand new way, and you don't run and you turn around and face that thing, watch it transform into something innocent, you know, some like a wounded child or an older person or something or someone needing your help or wanting your attention, your care, right? That's a part of you. That's fascinating. And I had the pleasure and surprise of experiencing this in one of my dreams recently. Can I share that
Yeah,
with
of course.
you?
Yeah, please.
It was one of my
1 sec, guys. Let's be clear
reoccurring-
about something. We can discuss anything. This is not an interview. Anybody can ask anything.
Yes,
discuss
yes.
anything. I'm stoked to hear all the things everybody wants to
Amazing.
share. So
Before the
so-
podcast, Joe
you know-
told us that he was the boss and we had to
Get
ask
outta here.
permission
Yeah, he
for
did.
everything.
Oh, absolutely did.
Exactly.
Don't
Please
let
make
it
sure
Now-
you raise your hands.
now-
I'll give you permission slips for
Yeah.
every single question that you guys have. Please, one at a time. No, but
you know, well, I'd
please.
love for it to flow, and I felt like
Yeah.
you had
Yeah,
something
you guys
to
are
maybe
doing
add.
amazing. No. If I have something to say, I usually interject. So don't worry about
okay,
that.
cool.
Oh, and Joe, I promise I'll get it in. And Joe is the best personal injury attorney I've ever met. Thank you for saying. I almost forgot to say it.
Thanks.
But yeah,
Thanks for the shameless plug. I really appreciate that.
Oh my god,
Podcast.
I love it.
Even worse.
love you,
So
buddy.
bad. All right.
Oh my
Yes,
god.
please share.
It's beautiful. All right, so this was a big moment for me, and I knew how fucking huge it was in my dream, even in my dream, and I still thought I was dreaming. It wasn't a lucid dream or anything like that, but even in my subconscious mind, I knew that this was a pretty epic thing to be happening. So it was one of my reoccurring dreams from my childhood, and it was always this huge, giant tsunami wave, this terrifying, like miles and miles and miles and high wave. And I was on the beach, and it was like about to eat me and destroy me, and it was the most terrifying moment, and this reoccurring nightmare since my childhood. So just a couple months ago, I re-entered that dream. It came again, and that message, that seed that was planted in my subconscious mind from Eric, activated in that moment, and it was enough of a memory. Again, I wasn't waking up in my dream or anything, but it was enough of a reminder in this awakening in my dream to respond in a brand new way. And so instead of turning, I was still like terrified. I was still activating my body, but instead of turning around and running the other way, I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna surrender. And it was hard. It was like I was about to die. I mean, I thought, just eat me up. This is it. But it was also this relieving feeling of I surrender. Okay, fine. I'm not going to resist anymore. So I just stayed there, and I started walking towards this big giant tsunami wave, and the energy had shifted enough, and I started walking towards it, and I looked up, and the water started to transform into this crystalline dust like sand, and the whole thing just fell down. It disintegrated and just fell down, and it was such a good moment. It was such a good moment and so freeing. And I can't conceive of what actually was happening in all the different layers of my psyche in that moment, but I woke up feeling so proud and free and excited, and couldn't wait to report back to Godzi about that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Be curious if you ever have the dream again.
I am too.
I'm gonna guess you won't.
My mom asked me that too. I would think not. Yeah. But just back to just the power of alchemizing the loving it, holding it, allowing it to transform.
Yeah, I started reading The Inner Work. Is that what you guys are reading?
Oh yeah, I haven't started that yet.
I started reading that because of Godzi, because I was dreaming so much recently and just like trying to understand and interpret my dreams. And like one thing that he said to me that really stuck with is, your dreams are about you. They're not about another person. I know that's a weird thing to like think, but I didn't start thinking about it until I started thinking about the dreams of what was happening. I'm like, oh, maybe this is what's going on in that person's life. It's like, no, this dream is about me and what's going on in my life. And so now I try to make it a point to, like, when I first wake up, to really just think about what my dreams are showing me, what they're trying to interpret. And I think a lot of it's just feeling into what you think it is and what's trying to be revealed to you and what's going on in your life. So that's been amazing. And then you were bringing up a point earlier that I wanted to get back to about, like, when you're going through all the work, and I don't know why when somebody says that I've been doing the work, but that term is very vague. But when you're basically trying to improve yourself as an individual and become more aware and conscious, let's just term it like that.
Yep.
It sucks. It does not feel good. And there are moments where you want to stop, turn around, make a U-turn, and be like, well, this was horrible. I don't know why the hell I did any of this. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm depressed. I flipped my life upside down. I broke up with my long relationship. That usually happens with a lot of people. I want to start over. I want to move to a new place. I want to disappear. And it is the worst feeling in the world. But that is probably the moment where you know you're on the right path. That's what I'll tell you. When you feel that feeling, you're in the right perfect spot. And a friend of mine said something to me. She's like, once you're enlightened, you can't become unenlightened. Like, once you know, you know. And so it's like, you can't go back to ignorance and bliss. And I remember for me, it happened, like, I hit a really rock bottom when I was at one of a Sacred Sons events, and I just got, like, super called out. I was super embarrassing. I bullied somebody. I did it in front of like a couple hundred people. It was a very, very embarrassing moment for me. Wow. And I just like hit this like mental low, and I got like, I started having these like dark thoughts, like suicidal thoughts for a moment. I'm like, I'm just going to order an Uber. I'm not going to tell anyone I'm leaving, and I'm going to go back home and go back to my old life and just slip back into this. And I just like literally was just like so tormented. And I'm like, all of this is like the worst experience of my life. And it just mentally needed to hit this like rock bottom. And then once I hit it, I was like, all right, I don't think my thoughts or like feelings can get any worse than this. Now it's like just literally like what came to me was a thought in my head, and it was a Tony Robbins book that I had read, and it's like, happiness is a choice. And I think that's a common theme against all things. Like, I can go back home, I can choose to be miserable, I can continue down the cycle of my life that I've been going since I was a child, or I can choose to be happy and literally start with this moment right here when I'm feeling the worst. Absolutely. And so it's a choice, and can't go back.
I can remember the first time I heard it's a choice.
Yeah. Get angry.
Oh my God, I was angry. Like, yeah, but you don't understand.
Yeah.
It might be a choice for you.
Yeah.
That's just fine for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And sadly, it is.
Yeah.
It is a choice.
Yeah. I mean, it was a video I was watching earlier today on Instagram from Gary Vee, which was like talking about like when the moment you take a step back and you realize like this moment where you are now, everything in your life was a series of everything that you chose to do.
Yes.
And it's not like saying like, woe is me is whatever, but just literally being like, I take full ownership for everything in my life. And then starting from there, you'll take control of your life in a moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just had that conversation with a client yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. It's either everything
non-judgmental.
happens to you or everything happens for you.
Everything that's
Yeah.
great in your life and everything that isn't so great,
Yeah.
they're all a product of our choices. And if you want something different, and this was a woman who's new in recovery,
Yeah.
you are attempting to create a life that you've never had.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do something you've never done.
Yeah.
You're going to, through mental processes, through changing how you think, how you view all of that, your beliefs, which will then move into your actions.
Yeah.
That's what you need in place to do something you've never done.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do something you've never
Write a
done.
new story.
So,
Yeah.
So I'm curious then, did you stay at the retreat instead of getting a car?
Cried like a little child for several hours, and then I remember just all the emotions, and like as I'm saying it, I'm like getting physically ill because I remember where I was, and I literally said, okay, I'm gonna write out how I feel right now, and I have a journal entry which I don't want to ever read to anybody of what my thoughts were, how I felt, everything else. And I was like saying these things out loud to myself. I kind of like snapped a little bit, and I just wrote out everything, and I'm like, all right, now it's out. And it was literally like a transference of energy just to like get it all out. And then I sat there, I'm like, all right, now how do I want to feel, and what do I want? And then I started writing like the things that I wanted to feel, and then like I went back out. Thank God I stayed, and I ended up going back to everyone, and I was well received. Even what I thought was like this horrible thing, it was actually a lot of lessons for a lot of other people, and like just like being brave, and like, and just I saw it just the most negative, worst way possible, but really it was received well with others, and it was a completely different, you know, everybody is having a subjective experience, so what you think could be the worst thing in the universe to somebody else is a great learning lesson and something that teach them. So yeah, I did end up staying, and very happy that I did. And
Good.
That's courage.
it was-
That's
Ooh,
courage.
That's huge.
yeah, it was very, very heavy, but I was proud of myself because my life could have went a completely different direction if I decided to go home at that moment.
Yeah, to quit
That's
that.
courage.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. Well, it can be hard, right? It's when you're in the shit and when you're going through it.
It's
just to
facing
keep
your
going.
tsunami.
Yeah,
It's facing your wave, and you chose to face it.
yeah, exactly. And then you
And
realize
and
once you
it's-
face it, it's
yeah,
beautiful.
it's not actually just a giant wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
But what a point for learning too. It's
Yeah.
like, again, I go back to sometimes we hold these as just victim status, or I say, yeah, that really sucked, and no, I'm not happy on how I showed up. What did I learn from it?
yeah,
How do I do better now that I know better? How do I do better?
yeah,
And having the courage to do that. So
yeah.
hats off to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's like recognizing why you've done things your whole entire life, and then once you know, it's like, are you going to keep doing this, or are you going to make a conscious effort to change and to move into the new person that you are with this new knowledge, right? It's like even what you were discussing earlier. It's just once you peel back another layer of the onion, it just like reveals another part for you, and now you can start stepping into that part of the journey.
Yep.
Yeah,
Going back to what you were saying about Gary Vee, right?
yeah. I love Gary Vee.
I know. But I love like what Peter Crone talks about too, of like the big cosmic joke is we like walk around here like we're prisoners, and it's like this image of like us being like these like babies coming into the world, and we're like all this, we're free. It's like we play this game where we actually like we like handcuff ourselves, and we like shackle ourselves, and we like create all to just like break free again, you know? And it is like I've seen this in my own life, I've seen this in my friends' lives. It's like, man, like we were sovereign and we were doing these things that lit us up, and then somehow the world told us we should do this, or we should be this, or that doesn't work, or you're not good at that. We become this prisoner, and then it's like this reclamation, you know? And it's so cool to be around so many people that are like in that energy. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So Peter Crone, one of the first things he said was the person you are right now for yourself is the obstacle to the freedom you desire. And that for me is like sums up a lot of like what we're searching for in life, where like the person you've created for yourself at this moment, it's going to protect you. It's going to make you feel strong. It also is probably your biggest issue because it's causing you to not get to where you want. And so the freedom you desire could be emotional freedom. It could be monetary freedom. Freedom really encompasses what we're all searching for. We're all looking to be free. And so, I mean, Peter Crone, I went down a rabbit hole and like listened to all of his podcasts with Aubrey, Kyle, and like Eric. Like, it was amazing. And he's an amazing human being. If you guys have not researched him, go check him out. But he just like breaks down these complicated topics and the most complicated things in like one-liners. And he just makes you realize like how simple life can be if you can get past yourself.
Right.
I don't know how else to summarize that.
Right.
Like, you are the problem,
Yep.
but you
way
are
he-
also the solution.
Yes, yes.
So like, and it's like, you know, talk about how none of us are perfect, because then you'd be the only person that's perfect. Like, we're all figuring it out. And one of the things that he brought up for me too is he said, he brings up to the point that the more interactions and the more relationships you have, the more free you are. And that's because relationships and people around you teach you where you're not free. And so it made me start realizing, like, in my life, like, I feel like I'm more free than like most of my friends. And it's probably because I put myself in so many social situations all the time. And every time you have a conversation, every time you talk to somebody or you create a new relationship, they're literally going to reveal something to you that you might have not seen on your own. And so they're allowing you to literally grow and change and develop. And so a lot of times I think people, they put themselves recluse or they become introverts, for lack of a better term, and they just don't want to be around others. But then you're not going to have opportunities for growth. If you're just hanging out with yourself, you're not going to be revealed where you're not free. And that's an opportunity to grow. So for anybody that tries to keep to themselves, I recommend like going and spending time with others, because I think we're social beings, and through that social interaction, you get to learn more, you get to grow, and you get to experience new things, which I think that's like the real beauty in life. Yeah.
And like what you said earlier, of like, I think part of the warrior's path is like, you have to own your shit, and like you have to like regulate your own nervous system. And I know no one can do that for me. And we are not supposed to like do this in isolation, and like, and I need community. And I learned so much about myself through every single, to Joe's point, like every single relationship. It's so juicy, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, too, like, even when I was traveling by myself, like, it was a beautiful experience. I had so much fun, but I was never happier and I was never feeling better than when I was sharing a moment with another person, right? And like those, like, cause like your energy, we get in the same sync and we're vibrating on the same energy, and so it raises both of our energetic like vibrations. So we're happier, we feel happier, like we're experiencing things on a more beautiful scale. And even like the sadness can be like sadder too, but it's still just feeling more, and that's like something you can't do just on your own, in my opinion. Yeah.
It's like darkness retreats, yes. Vipassana, yes. Like do
Yeah.
those challenges, those
Yeah.
solo missions, and like community.
Yeah.
And that needs the individual involved will see the lessons created by other people if they're looking.
Yeah.
There are so many people that I've through my past that just they don't see those lessons because they're not looking for them. And that's the beauty of the Fit for Service community. Is we're all looking. We're all searching for those nuggets.
Yeah, and never track alone. I like to say that, you know, it's the Boyd Vardy's, the lion tracker.
Never what alone?
Never track alone.
Never track
And he
alone,
learned
yeah.
that from tracking lions, you know, but he brings that into this, you know, spiritual evolution journey as well.
Yeah.
Connection is one of the 6 human needs. It just is. You know,
Yeah.
Love and connection are a basic human need.
Yeah. Boyd Vardy, I really liked. The one thing that sticks through my mind is, so for those of you who don't know Boyd Vardy, he's a lion tracker. And so he would tell stories teaching us basically that he would teach us how he would track lions, and it's all about like the subtleties in life. Like you'd see the way the lion lays, you'd see the, you know, the specks or the fur from the lion, you'd see how it was standing on its toes so it's looking down river, or like all the little things. And he basically was teaching us that by following this lion in the way that they follow the lion, this is how we should be following the tracks in our own lives. And we should be seeing the subtle differences and seeing, like, you know, nothing happens by accident, right? For me, a big thing I've been chiming into is like the moment I think of someone, I'll just send them a text. Even and I've changed some people's lives, and they've changed my life just from a text. Like this $6 million case that I settled the other day. Listen to how this happened. So I was working with one of the top attorneys in the country. I met him at a conference one time. Okay, I got excited. I met him at a conference once, and he had my number. But there's another attorney named Joseph Nazarian that's also a personal injury attorney in Los Angeles. I was in Lake Como, and I see the call from Steve Vardazarian. I'm like, why is he calling me right now? I've never spoken to this guy before. He's like He's like, would be like the Kobe Bryant of personal injury attorneys. Like, he's a badass. And he calls me and we just start talking about Lake Como. And we talk for like an hour, just like out of nowhere. And I'm like, you called the wrong attorney. He's like, my bad. And then he ended up working with me on 3 different cases, and all of them ended up being multiple, like 6-figure and then 7-figure cases by accident. Well, nothing's by accident.
Nothing by
That's the whole
accident.
point.
Right.
Yep.
And so that's like goes back to
Wow.
somebody asked a question to Boyd when we were standing around the fireplace, or not the fire, and somebody was like, well, how can I help other people follow their own tracks in life? And then he literally just looks back and he goes, follow yours. And so like that's really the greatest gift that you can give to others, is you just need to follow your own path and watch the tracks and be in tune with the universe and see what's going on. And by following your own path, it goes back to giving permission to others to do the same. And the greatest gift you can give other people is just to do what inspires you, to do what makes you feel safe and what makes you feel good. And some people might call that selfish. I think it's the most selfless thing you can do, is to be true to yourself and to be true to your own heart.
I have no
Mic
doubt.
drop.
Mic
Yeah.
drop. Yep.
Yes.
I have no doubt that Mother Teresa felt good about the things that she did.
Yeah.
Was it selfish?
Yeah.
No.
No, but it all goes back
It's
to
okay to feel
intention,
good.
right? Like, what are your intentions
Yes.
behind what you're doing? Like Gary Vee again, he talks about like people, he's like, some people judge him, like they're projecting their own insecurities on him. People can feel your true intentions behind what you say and what you do, right? And that goes back to like what Mateus De Stefano was talking about. Like, I just finally learned what intention means, and intention means to be in constant tension. But to be in constant tension, it means to be in perfect pull between what you think, what you feel, and what you do. If all 3 of them are not in perfect tension,
Coherence,
then your intention is not pure and it's not good. And a lot of people like ask me sometimes when I talk about things, well, can't somebody think about that? I'm like, they can. Can't somebody interpret it this way? They should. And it's like, but that's their experience. I know what my intentions are, and I have no shame and no ill will, and I'm just saying what's coming through, you know, in that moment. And so it just comes back to, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And what am I doing? And
Yes,
so
I love that
I was
chart.
saying something, like let's say that I said something, but then you look at my normal life and I'm not thinking and feeling and in alignment, then yeah, people should judge me. No, they shouldn't judge me, but like it is okay for them to feel that way about me, because I'm not in constant tension, because I'm not in intention with what I'm doing. But if I'm living the way that I should be, I'm acting the way that I should be, and I'm being kind and like, you know, repeating this with others, then it's perfectly fine.
You're going to be in resonance,
Yeah.
you know, with your life, with the universe, with other people, just like instruments, you know, need to have the right tension to produce the right note, so that the chords have the right, you know, the resonance, you know. And it also makes me think about us all having our own unique, like signature or frequency. And so living in intention in that way that you're explaining, you know, produces that. And that's so important, because we are all here to have this intimate our own unique intimate relationship with life. It's like the saddest thing to me to think about people, and I'm sure there's a ton of people not living in resonance or in truth and having that beautiful relationship with life, where they're following the breadcrumbs and hearing the whispers and, you know, receiving everything as magical
And
gifts.
It's revolutionary, because our
Yeah.
system is like set up for us not to do that. It's like,
Right.
be on your phone, over caffeinate, go straight to drink. Like, it's just like unconscious. And so I think to be a lion tracker and be like, how did that make me feel? Like, what is that interaction here to teach me? Like, really paying attention. It's extraordinary.
Kind of like walking out into the wilderness and find your teacher.
Yeah.
You know, like we did in
Yeah.
To
Sedona.
sit,
I
find
found my cactus teacher.
your special spot.
Yeah.
Yes, and sit
So
and
being
listen.
that intentional about that. And how often too, and something you had said, Joe, caused me to think about when we any information that is out there, anything that I receive is filtered through my past. It's filtered through the lens of my past experiences. And so the minute that it comes through my filter, then the light gets shifted in one way, and it might get shifted negative. Doesn't mean that what you did was negative. It's just being filtered through my lens, and vice versa. We all have these, I call them trauma lenses, right? That we filter information from or filter it through.
Yeah.
And until we can start healing that, everything, you know, feels like an insult or a cut or, you know, whatever, because I haven't healed my traumas because, you know, whatever. So.
Versus the assumption of like, he didn't mean that, or like it's all
Exactly.
love, right? And I think that's like, as we heal, we're able to like accept people so differently because this is like a clear vessel that's radiating like acceptance and love and non-judgment. Yeah.
And when my thoughts and my feelings and my actions are not in alignment, and I haven't done that really well, it wasn't because I wanted it to be that way.
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And I'm still finding that centeredness and that balance. And if you and I are both in that effort, like this, we're trying to do this in an understanding that it's not always going to be pretty, or it's not always going to be perfect. I don't always show up the way I want to.
Yeah.
Recognizing it and going, I can do better.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean we're off track.
Absolutely not.
That's one thing that Boyd helped me understand and really relax into the between one track and another. I used to feel off track and it would produce a lot of anxiety and stress, like coming from this perfectionist kind of nature of just like, I always have to be on track, because like, even when you're off track, you're on track. It's okay if there's distance between one track and another, one resonance and another.
Yeah. But it's also, I think, just like feeling into knowing that you could be more on track. I think there's a difference between like you're always
you don't
on
give
track.
up.
Yeah, but it's like but sometimes it just feels better than other times, and I think that's just when you're out of misalignment. But I think too, like with emotions, right? There's no such thing as a good emotion or a bad emotion. There's just emotions, and emotions are signaling to you that you're in misalignment. So if you're feeling a type of way, it means I believe that it means there needs to be a shift in your life to get you back on a track that feels smoother. And that's also part of the journey too. Because I know there's times in my life where I'm like, this is just painful every day. And then there are times in my life, like now I feel really aligned in like so many aspects. And every day I'm like, no, this is good, because I can feel it when I like have like these nervous tics and stuff that I do when I'm like really out of misalignment.
Yeah.
And so like I'll be doing them, or I'll just like when I'm sitting in like the silent moments, am I being flooded with thoughts of things that need to be done or that are not being done or things that I'm ignoring, or like when I went to Joshua Tree this last weekend for a friend's birthday, there's this moment that I just took to myself. Everybody was like hanging out on my buddy's thing called the Love Bus, and I was just like, I'm just gonna take a moment and watch the sunrise. And I just sat there and I was just watching this beautiful, beautiful sunrise, and there were no thoughts flooding my head. And I was just like, for the first time I remember in a long time, I was just enjoying the sunrise, because there was nothing I needed to do. There was nothing that I was like stressed about. I was just like, everything in life, my thoughts were, life's good. This is beautiful, and this
You
feels
were in
nice.
that moment, right here, right
Yeah,
now.
and I was just present instead of like, your anxiety is in the future and your depression's in the past. And I was like, I didn't have anything to be depressed or anxious about,
here.
so I was just hanging out. And it's like, but it was the first time in my life that I can remember just like taking a moment like that, not being worried about something else. And so
Beautiful.
it's a good place to be at. Yeah. So it was really nice.
Yeah. So you're saying what I'm hearing you say is like that speaks to how you have been currently or recently building your life and placing things to be a good supportive structure that's going to breed health. So you can have that moment.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to me. I've just been reading the tracks, like, and I like pay attention to the little things, like maybe her wearing a red dress is saying something to me today, right?
Yes,
Like,
the little things.
seeing the little things, because I think that you feeling into that, like nothing happens by accident. Why does this say something to me, and what am I paying attention to here? And just following those threads, and that's just a beautiful part of the journey. And the more you follow the bigger threads, you start seeing the smaller and the smaller and the smaller, and then you realize everything is for you and it's showing you something.
I think one of the greatest lessons that I learned early on, and I didn't realize it was occurring until well into the journey, but how important just becoming aware. Aware of my surroundings, aware of my emotions, aware of my body semantics. And the more that I become aware, the more I can read those tracks or read the tea leaves quicker and go, I'm out of alignment. This isn't feeling right. This doesn't feel good. Or how interesting, this doesn't feel good. Where is that coming from? A great quote that I love is, trust the teacher that is the trigger. The trigger is what you were talking about. It's a symptom. It's just pointing towards. And so when I get those come up, it's like, how interesting. Where is that? And what is it pointing towards?
Yeah, they're all opportunities to learn. Yeah.
I've been diving a little bit into the human design and learning about my human design, and that is helping so significantly understand these pieces of my past and where and why I've suffered or how I haven't felt nourished or, what my needs are. It's really helping me put the pieces together of how to build a more nourishing environment, because that happens to be especially important for my design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy the human design stuff, and I enjoy the astrology stuff. But I think I'm really aligned with like what Aubrey thinks about them too, where it's like they're beautiful, and I think they're such amazing guiding posts, and they can really teach you so much. But do not box yourself into them. I think they're written by human beings, and human beings are fallible, just like you can write a lot of things that are generic. But there are just some things that really hit, and you're just like, that's so true. Because I think like human design, one of my things is like my spleen is the thing that's my intuition, which makes sense. My whole life, I've just like, it's the most silent of all of them. And I've just ignored my intuition most of my life because I couldn't even hear the damn thing. And so, some people like it's their solar plexus, some people it's their heart, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like part of it,
Can
right?
be right. It can be so validating of like, this is correct for you, instead of, in my childhood and upbringing, I lived in a world that seemed to still be thinking like all children are wired the same, and so therefore, like, if you didn't show up in a certain way or you weren't good at certain things, then you were like weak or lesser in some way. But now with like these new studies and our, renewed empowerment and self-awareness and everything, it's like, no, that's not correct for me. That's not the way I work. That's not how I'm designed. It's actually correct for me to flow through passions and move, through different work and art. And, I'm not designed to just choose one career and then stick with that for my whole entire life. That's not correct for me. So that feels so freeing. Like this is me. This is how I work.
Yeah. I mean, but it's true though. Some of that stuff makes a lot of sense. Like, I think I'm a projector. I'm sorry if I'm wrong for anybody out there, but one of the coaches that was like teaching me about it, he was saying like something for me that's important is like, if I'm invited somewhere, I'll have the best time ever. If I'm not invited and I show up, it's going to be one of the worst experiences for me. And it's something that I tested out.
Do you find that true?
Yeah, 1000% so true. If I'm not invited, I don't go anymore. Like, I need literally a direct invitation from the person hosting the event to be like, I would love for you to attend. Or otherwise, I don't go at all, because I tried just like showing up to a couple things or like inviting myself when I wasn't like formally invited. And ended up being some of the worst experiences of my life.
Okay. So I'm a projector in human design too. And that's absolutely true for me. And that's been so validating, and now I'm actually communicating that to my people in my world, and to let them know I really like to be invited, and I kind of need to be invited, and this is so if you hadn't invited me to be on your podcast, like there's no way I would have been just like, Joe,
we should
have me on your podcast.
We should do a podcast
I need to
together.
be on your podcast.
That's funny.
So that feels really good. One detail I'm noticing right now is all three of you are wearing black hats, and I'm not. What's up with that?
So funny. I just
Where's
always
my
joke
hat?
when I arrive at Fit for Service, oh, I've arrived. Everyone's wearing a goddamn hat like this. So,
Dang, I should have brought my Fit for Service hat.
Yeah.
I'm tired of traveling with that hat though on the airplane and stuff. So this time I was like, it's probably gonna be chilly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just part of like the conscious community. All of us have these hats, and they're all like more ridiculous like as they get going. There's one girl in our group that like makes them with like real Damascus knives. What is her name? I forget her name. But she literally makes these Damascus knives. If anybody knows, that's like the full as steel, and they make miniature ones that they literally put in the hats. It's pretty wild. Yeah. So
they're
like a lot of
tiny
people
and
have
beautiful.
some wild
I saw one.
details on a lot of these. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So funny.
Creative.
Yeah.
I ended up with my hat. That was actually, this hat was a really big deal.
Yeah.
That I will not be able to get through without tearing up. So,
all right.
This was at the last Fit for Service, and it was for sale on the back table, and I kind of like to get something when I go somewhere, and I tried it on, and I'm like, it's nice. I like it, and I don't know that. I'm like, we're gonna go eat. We're gonna go eat lunch, and I'll decide. And Joe said, "You look really good in that hat." I'm like, "Thank you." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you going to get it?" I'm like, "I don't know. How much is it?" I don't even remember. He's like, and he looked at the lady and he says, "I'll buy it." And I went, and my very first reaction, like, is he says, he didn't even finish the statement, "I'll buy it." I'm going, "No."
I wasn't giving you an option.
I know, but that was, to me, it was really interesting that was my very first reaction is, no, I'm not going to allow you to buy me a gift.
Yeah.
And I was so touched that you did that.
Yeah.
And he's like, you look really good in that hat. You need to have that hat, and I want to buy it for you.
Yeah.
And how to receive. So twofold, as I go back and to say part of my mission in coming to Fit for Service was to learn how to develop male relationships and to accept a gift from another man
Yeah.
was huge, and it still is.
Oh, I love that.
It still is.
You're very welcome.
You didn't know that you were doing that. You were just buying somebody a gift because you wanted to, and that's just your heart.
Yeah.
You had no idea the impact of that. So
Really
the
happy.
gratitude of it, and also the fact that I could receive a gift, because our species has been such a threat to me my entire life.
Yeah.
And so that was a confirmation to my nervous system that not every man in the world wants to hurt me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Can I magnify something else about that story?
Yeah.
I think not only like is it a beautiful gift, I think like you witnessed him, and like you look good in that hat. I think like being seen is like such a big deal, and I think like men don't often see other men in that way too. And so like, man, how beautiful for you not only to like give, but also like to witness. I think it's beautiful.
it was really special. It was truly amazing. So thank you again.
You're very welcome.
And I love the shoes.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Taft
I do.
boots. Yeah. I'm big on shoes. I probably have more shoes than most chicks. I have like 25 pairs of shoes, but I like them. They make me excited.
But how often like do we see something in someone and we don't say it? Like, you know, you think, oh, like you could like someone's outfit or think that was really smart what they said, or, ooh, that stuck with me. And we just kind of keep it to ourselves. I think like to have the courage to like see someone and then like speak it is huge. I'm trying to be better about that in my own life of when I see like beauty in someone or kindness in someone to like reflect that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What would the world be like if we were all looking for that in the other people?
Yeah.
Looking for the points where what you said was beautiful, or instead of what's wrong. And
So, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, this has actually been just a strong point in my life, my whole life, because growing up, words of affirmation can be difficult for me, but genuine compliments have never been difficult for me. Growing up, we always, in my family, would speak a little bit negatively to each other. We wouldn't use kind words. You know, we showed each other love through like gifts and stuff like that. But when it comes to like seeing someone genuinely shining, I love like reflecting that to them and just like basically letting them know like, you look amazing right now, because I think that's like, you don't always see people in their full authenticity. And when you do, somebody was talking about, I think Gary Brecka was talking about like the vibration of like a human being is like thousands times higher when you're literally in your full authenticity. So when I feel it, I'm just like, I want more of that, because it makes me feel literally better. And I like it literally like I can feel it like medicine, just like making me feel on a better vibration.
But from other people, you're saying?
From other
yes,
person.
Well,
I
just
love
that you're
seeing it.
attuned to feel it, because I don't think everyone is attuned to
No.
feeling it.
Yeah.
And then it's beautiful that you're stepping into reflecting that. That is the best medicine for me.
For sure, yeah. And even like, when I saw you put on that hat, like I saw you perk up, I saw you smiling. I could literally feel yourself, like your spine got a little bit better looking. I'm like, this is his hat. Like,
Yeah,
why
you're
is he
like,
not, why is he not
is
getting
his-
this hat? And, and that
exactly,
goes
this
back
is
into
his hat.
feeling into it. And that's why, like,
Yes.
too, with a lot of friends, like we'll be out, like I've been blessed financially. So like if I see someone and I'm like, I can see that they want that, I'm like, dude, we're getting that right now. Like, because it just makes them more of themselves. And
love
that's
that you
really
do
what
that.
the more we're ourselves, the more everybody literally feels better. Like it's kind of like almost like a weird selfish way for me, because I'm like, it literally makes me feel better that you're feeling better.
Absolutely.
So it's like, but it's like this authentic thing where it's like, I just want you to feel more comfortable in your shoes or in your clothes or whatever it is, right? And sometimes that little thing will literally amplify that personality, and then the more they're amplified, it amplifies me, and I love to be amplified. So it's like this
my
like back and
God,
forth
yeah. And
vibration.
that's your
World
gift.
amplified.
Yes.
Yeah.
See,
That's
this is
the
how we
world you
change the
want
world.
to be
Exactly.
in.
That's
Yeah,
the
it
world. world I want to be
wow,
in.
that's your powerful gift, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
always
very
like,
meaningful.
yeah, I was like, I always joke, like, people are like, what's your superpower? I'm like, hyper awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. It's like this little subtleties. Maybe it's just I'm aware of the vibration or like whatever's going on. Cause I'll be like at a party and there'll be like one person that's like messing up everything. And I literally will feel it. And I'll literally take this person aside and I will hold space. I will process through and then bring them back. And then the whole vibration of the whole party is better. But like, not everyone reads into these subtleties or sees that stuff.
No,
And
yeah.
it's sometimes just paying attention to the little nuances, the way someone's sitting, the way they're acting, the words
my
they're
gosh.
using. And the more you pay attention to, I guess it just goes
This
back to
is-
following the tracks, like just seeing the little
Yeah.
things, you can help to relieve whatever is going on at that moment.
It's
Yeah.
particularly also a skill of projectors, and
Got
you're
it.
inspiring me because I have that ability too
Yeah.
to take more action.
Yeah.
On it, because I don't think I've ever done that. You know,
Yeah.
because I will know exactly in the room too, like what is out of resonance and
Yeah.
what's causing the whole room to. And maybe not everyone is feeling that, but on some
Yeah.
level, I feel like they are.
Yeah.
But I've never just taken someone aside to address it or
Yeah.
talk or hold space or whatnot. Have they been receptive to that invitation?
So for me, what it is I just like sometimes say things that I don't even know where it came from. And I think that's just sometimes God using me in a
I can
way
relate to
to
that.
help
Yes.
somebody else heal, where I'm just like, I'll just walk up to somebody and I know that this is what needs to be, I don't want to say dealt with, just like this is a conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I'll ask a question about something that I had no idea what's going on in their life. And it's the exact
Okay.
question that I need to ask, like maybe their job or like a relationship. And I don't really know much about this person, but I just knew those were the words that needed to come out of my mouth. And then it's like a flood from that person. And so it's just literally trusting your intuition. And because I think your intuition is just your conversation with God at all moments. And then just knowing what you're going to say and whatever is going to come through is exactly right. And just following that. And it also comes with a level of bravery because you're then opening a door to something that you're now once again back to that original conversation. This could now shift my entire evening, and now I need to energetically be prepared for this person could cry. It could shift me, but it's for the betterment of everyone.
Yes,
So it's
yes.
worth you taking the time to help with whatever is going on. And the more you help others, the better you feel, and which is another selfish thing almost. But it's just if you can learn to get beauty in helping others heal, then it's just this like kind of guilty pleasure, which I really do enjoy.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, bravery. Well, you've helped to open the door for my bravery to come forth, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's
So
exciting
now,
when you
now
do it.
life is going to be
Yeah.
new. Yeah.
Juicier.
Yeah, juicy,
juicier.
exciting.
Yeah, and you always know what to say. You always know what to feel. Just you know, it's just about the other person and really just helping
Yeah.
them go through whatever they're going through. And I
yeah.
think like projectors, like we help amplify others, right? I
Right.
think that's like part of our thing. Yeah, so I need to read
Well, I'm
into that a
ready.
little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready. I knew that stepping into the container fit for service was also guiding me to this place where, I mean, obviously I can be more of service, but to me that also means to step into more of a leadership role, holding space, you
Yeah.
know, offering services.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm constantly doing for my family and my kids, but
Yeah,
but
we-
yeah, even for the community.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about much when you brought up the 4 H's earlier.
The 4 H's.
What are
the
those
4
4
H's?
H's? And
Okay,
what
yeah.
does that mean? Also, just timing wise, what time is it?
No idea.
2:02. So we've been going
2
for
o'clock is
2
2
hours.
hours,
Okay, right. So this is going to be the halfway point of this is going to be part 1, part 2 broken up for when it comes to the episodes. So, okay, so we still have 2 hours. We have 2.5 hours if we would like to go longer, but we'll feel it out. Okay, cool. So we're going to get into the second part of this podcast here. And the question I asked at the end of the last one is asking Scarlet, what are the 4 H's? You brought up 4 H's at the beginning of the first podcast of how you run your life. You're an at-home mother, but that is a full-time job, maybe more than 5 full-time jobs, depending on how many children you have. And I'm excited to hear a little bit about that journey.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be great if we lived in a tribe, in a society where this job was a paying position. I would love to be paid for this position.
Yeah.
Okay, the 4 H's. Okay, home birth, homeschool, homemaking, and homesteading. And they all kind of go together. And it's just been a process of discovering that these are the arts that I'm stepping into, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit of a backstory. I grew up in the country in Florida next to the Temple of the Universe. The Temple of the Universe was founded by Mickey Singer, but most of you know him as Michael Singer. He wrote The Surrender Experiment. and the untethered soul. And this trip is such full circle for me. And I've just been naturally calling it the surrender experiment, which is fascinating because that's the name of his book, right? Which brings me back to my childhood. You know, it's just like the beautiful story, my story unfolding, brings me back there. So I grew up in the country in this container of conscious community, and like all the things that I love, I happen to just be born right there into all of that. He actually had a construction company called Built with Love, and they built our house. And so my beginning was just in the nature, in the country, in nature. And my mom was, passionate about home birth. So I think that was my birth. So I have that in the cells of my being, and on some level remembering her journey of home birth. And so as I'm approaching motherhood, that's naturally how I want to move through it, and wanting my family and my kids to grow up in the country. So yeah, I've journeyed. I have 3 kids, so 3 amazing. Home birth is my favorite psychedelic journey. It's it's epic. It is. There's 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah, 3. So I've been through just wonderful pregnancies and home birth.
So are you
every
like a
time.
trained doula? Is that the proper term, or like?
I am, just because I did choose to get even more involved in birth work because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
So I have been through a couple doula trainings.
Okay.
Yeah. But even if I hadn't,
And doula,
it's hard not to just study
yeah.
birth work and the arts as a home birthing
You could also
mom.
explain what a doula is for people that might not know. What is a doula?
Yeah, so a doula is not a midwife. A midwife would be the person that you would hire to be there, who was taking care of your health, the baby's health, throughout the whole birthing process. Taking care of any like equipment, cleaning, all of this. So the doula is really your birth partner, your birth sister. I'm sure there's men that are doulas too, but so the person that's there that has your back energetically, spiritually, is gonna like provide any food that you might need. So anything that the midwife is not, taking care of.
Okay.
The midwife's not going to be doing those extra things, right? But yeah, a doula's not required, when you're doing a home birth, just a midwife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.